Welcome to Revolutionize Your Marketing. This is an amazing program that is hosted by John Petros Sr. every Friday at 4 o'clock Central, 5 o'clock Eastern. And wow, are you in the right place at the right time today? Because there's an amazing guest joining us, and I think you're going to like this story. I've gotten a little sneak peek of it, and I can hardly wait. So with no further ado, I'm going to go ahead and right away here get John Petros Sr. in to go ahead and do introductions. How you doing tonight, John?
I'm doing great, Sue. Thank you. Always good to have you introduce. And welcome, folks, to Revolutionize Your Marketing. Usually, my podcast is about marketing in ways. Well, tonight is a special night. I've got a special guest that has a special message that he was asked to give out to the world. And tonight is one of his many, 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 many opportunities to get that word out. What a story. John J. Davis has had a near-death experience. It is a story that beats all of the ones that I have heard so far, which is why I've asked him to come on to Zoom. Welcome, John.
Hey, John. So good to see you. Thanks for inviting me on your show. I always love the opportunity to share my story. So thanks for inviting me.
My pleasure. Okay, why don't we start off and let people know where you are
Sure.
and when this happened and
Sure,
how.
absolutely. Yeah, my whole story starts back in 1987. And the whole thing started with my dad, really. My dad was in sales for his whole career. And one year, he had won a sales contest. And part of what he won were these mopeds, or what we would call scooters today. And we used to ride these all over the neighborhood. But one day I was out riding and I had an accident and I slammed into a tree. And the way that I landed, I tore the tendons off my right hand and I needed to go into surgery to have them reattached. Well, I was only 21 and I had never really had surgery before. I had never even really been in a hospital before. So I didn't know what to expect. So my mom drives me down to the clinic, and I remember going into the operating room. They put me on the gurney, they get me all prepped, and they started to give me the anesthesia. And I had something horrible. I had a horrible allergic reaction to the anesthesia, and it
Hmm.
stopped my heart. And I actually died. And that is how my whole story starts to unfold, is from that moment. And that's what started my whole near-death experience.
Oh, yeah,
Do you
that
want me
must have
to?
been
I,
pretty
I
tough.
can I can just basically start telling you how the whole thing started. And if you have any questions for me, feel free to interrupt me and let me know.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, good. So here's what happened. So I'm laying on the gurney and I died. The very next second, I woke up and I was standing in the most beautiful building I had ever seen. It was made of white marble. It was so long. This building was so long, I could not see the end of it. And in my left ear, I heard, "My name is Alan. I'm your spirit guide." Well, I was raised Catholic from a really young age. And my dad used to take us to church 2 or 3 times during the week and also on Sunday. So I had never heard of anything like a spirit guide before. I thought this must be maybe an angel. But apparently, all of us have spirit guides that help us plan a lifetime, and they are with us throughout our entire lives. So my spirit guide's name was Alan, and he talked to me in my left ear, and he told me everything that I was seeing. So that's how I remember everything so well, is everything he told me. Well, if I go back a little bit, and I want to give your listeners kind of the the background about why my story is so unique and interesting. A lot of times when we hear about near-death experience stories, we hear about a person who has an accident, kind of like I did, or they're in a hospital and they die, and they find themselves floating above their bodies looking down. Then they become aware of a tunnel, and at the end of the tunnel, there's a white light. Well, as they're moving down the tunnel, they're met by somebody, either a loved one, a family friend, someone who tells them, it's not your time. You have to go back. So we have never known what is on the other side of that white light. But what they did with me, and I still to this day don't know how they did that, but my whole story starts on the other side of the white light. On the other side of the white light is this building, this beautiful building that I was standing in. And my guide told me, this is the orientation center. Well, what it was, when I looked over to my right, all the way down as far as I could see were these huge, tall marble columns, maybe 20 or 30 feet high, absolutely beautiful, going all the way down, maybe 6 feet apart. In the middle of this building were these tables, like the size of someone's average kitchen table. And there were 2 people sitting at every one of these tables, again, going down as far as you could see. When I looked to my left-hand side, this was the most amazing part of this building. It was like a marble, gigantic marble wall, but cut into the marble were these tunnels. And all the way down, as far as you could see, about 6 feet apart, were these tunnels. And my guide, Alan, told me, this is how we come back to the other side, or to heaven, or the afterlife, because the other side is our home. Earth was never meant to be our home. God didn't set it up that way. We're only here temporarily. So when we finish a lifetime, we come back down this tunnel, we go into the light, and we come through one of these tunnels. Well, right about then, my guide said, look at the next tunnel. So I looked up. There was a man coming through, and he was doing this. He had his hand over his chest like he had chest pain. And my guide said, he just died from a heart attack. Well, he lived a long life because he was either 85, 90. He lived a long time. And there was, in the middle of this, where all those tables were, these people that were sitting there, they're called orientation counselors. And the reason that they're there, he told me that many people don't remember where they're from when they finish a lifetime. And the biggest fear of humanity is the fear of dying, because we don't remember what happens when we die. That's what these counselors are there for. So the counselor was a woman who was sitting right next to this tunnel. She stood up. She walked over to this gentleman. She took his hands in hers, and she led him back to the table. And they sat across from each other. And I could see that she was talking to him, but I was too far away. I couldn't hear what she was saying. But my guide, Alan, said that they basically tell people that you just finished your life. You died from a heart attack or old age, whatever you passed from, and now you're back on the other side. You're home now. And my guide said to watch him. So I'm watching him, and the strangest thing started to happen. He began to change from a man who was in his 90s to a young man in his 30s. And my guide said, everybody on the other side is in their 30s. I wish that I would have asked why, but I didn't. There were so many questions that I've had all these years. But I think the issue was that when I was having this experience, I didn't know that I died. I was just going along with everything he was telling me, everything he was showing me. Because I think if I knew I died, I would have asked so many questions. So apparently when God created all of us, we were all created in the image in our 30s. Well, as this man changed, his whole body changed to a young man again. He stood up and he walked off down these 3 steps between the columns. And he walked into what I call are the gardens. I don't know if that's what the other side calls them, but they were
Yeah.
the most beautiful garden. I mean, this huge, enormous garden full of emerald green grass and flowers and trees. And it was absolutely beautiful. And there were all these people there. All these people were standing. There must have been 100 or 200 people. And my guide said, when we come back from a lifetime, we all have a reunion. And all the people that this gentleman who just crossed over, all the people he knew in his life that had passed before him, they were all waiting for him on the other side in this garden. And
Mm.
people were applauding, people were hugging this man, telling him he did a great job. He's back home now. You did it. You did a great job. And my guide said, the reason that all these people are there to greet us is because he said, when we come to a life on earth, it's a really big deal because there are so many souls who don't want to come here because life on earth is really tough. We all go through a lot of difficult things here on this planet, in this world. And there are many souls who don't want to experience any of that. So when we come into a lifetime, it's a big deal. And when we finish a life here and our life ends and we come back home again, everybody is there to greet you. All the people you knew in your life, plus all the people that you've already known before you came in. And that's what he told me was called the reunion. Well, after this, my guide Alan took me to different places on the other side. And he, of course, he didn't show me everything, but he showed me a part of the other side that is really, really busy. People were everywhere and people were going about their lives, very busy activities, all kinds of things. And what he did, he took me to the outside of these different places first to see what they looked like. And then he took me to the inside. So the first place he takes me to is this gigantic marble building with white marble columns all along the perimeter. And then we go on the inside, and he takes me to a room that is a round room. It looked like a round theater, this gigantic round room. And all along the top above me were these movie screens, just like you would see in a movie theater. There must have been maybe 15 or 20 of these. And my guide said, this is the life review. Well, I had no idea what that even meant. Back in 1987, nobody had talked about any of this stuff. I didn't even know what was going on. But he said, this is the life review. And then all of a sudden, every one of these movie screens lit up like it was playing a movie. But it was a movie about me. It was a movie about me in my life, how I grew up. In every screen that was on the ceiling, every screen was showing a different time period of my lifetime. One was showing me as a little infant. Another one was showing me as a toddler. Another screen showed me as a kindergartner. All these different episodes of my life were playing. And my guide told me that the life review is the greatest teacher of the soul. And I think the reason for that is because we can feel how our actions affected other people in this life review. And there was a kid in one of the screens. I was in elementary school, maybe 3rd grade, and we were out at recess one day, and there was a boy in our class. His name was Toby. And Toby had something wrong with his legs. He had either MS or Parkinson's, and he couldn't walk without crutches. So we're out at recess one day, and he fell. And I ran up to him. I helped pick him up, helped him put his crutches back on. And I never thought anything about that. Every one of us would do that same thing. So it never occurred to me of anything about that. Well, I could see and I could feel when I was looking at that video, I could feel how that made Toby feel. And he was so grateful and so appreciative that I actually helped him. Well, the other side of that, in the life review, if anybody intentionally hurts someone, they can actually feel how their actions affected somebody else. So it was explained to me that everybody who comes into a life on earth, when they finish that lifetime, they have to have a life review so they can kind of see how they did. We want to check our progress, how we did. And it's also the opportunity for us to learn. And if we did something to hurt somebody else intentionally, we feel what they felt. And that is what teaches the soul. So then what happened is we left that building and we went to another building that was gigantic. It had large columns again out front. And we go on the inside and he takes me into what looked like a movie theater, just like we would go see a movie today.
Yeah.
And there was a big screen up at the front and all the lights were on. It was super bright. And my guide said, I'm going to show you past lifetimes. Well, this was something that I had no experience with. Being raised Catholic, we're never told about past lifetimes. That doesn't even exist. But we actually have past lifetimes. And he said, I want to show you 3 past lifetimes. So the movie screen lights up and it's like playing a movie and it's me. I didn't look like I do now, but I was an elderly gentleman. I had a shaved head and I was wearing a red gown or a red robe and I was in a monastery. And my job in that life was to teach kids how to be monks. And that life took place somewhere in Southeast Asia. And then it went off. He said, I'm going to show you another one. The screen lights up again. Again, it's me. And I'm a man with a wooden wheelbarrow. And I'm pushing this wheelbarrow down a cobblestone street. And I have all these shoes stacked in this wheelbarrow. And in that lifetime, I fixed people's shoes. And I would put them in the wheelbarrow and take them back to the village and hand them out to people. And then that one disappeared. Then he said, I'm going to show you the 3rd lifetime. The screen lights up again. Again, it's me. And I'm standing in a little raggedy wooden boat on a lake or on the ocean. And I'm casting this net into the water. And I'm pulling it back up hand over hand like this into the boat. And my job in that life was to help catch fish to feed the village. And that lifetime happened somewhere in the Middle East. And that was something, out of all the places he took me to, that was the hardest part for me to kind of realize that past lifetimes are real. Well, then when I thought about it, my guide said, we have always been. We are as eternal as God is eternal. So if you want to have other lifetimes, it's absolutely possible. You can have as many as you want. So that was what I called the life review. And then, of course, the past life building. Then my guide and I leave there, and he takes me to another building. And it was absolutely this beautiful, breathtakingly gorgeous white marble round building, huge. It had the white columns all around the outside of it, and it had a big, huge dome on top, perfectly round, just beautiful building. And my guide said, this is where we go when we plan a lifetime. So he takes me to the inside. He walks me up to a table, this beautiful white marble table. And sitting on top of this table is a scroll, one scroll, and it was rolled up. And it looked like Egyptian papyrus paper, kind of looked like that kind of old brown. And there was a blue ribbon around it. So I picked it up and I took off the ribbon and I laid it out like this on the table. And my guide said, all of us plan our lifetimes before we come in. We plan all the major elements of the things we want to experience. The things like, what language are we going to learn? What country are we going to be born into? Who our parents are going to be? Are we going to have children? Are we going to go to school? What kind of careers are we going to pursue? All of these things go into planning a lifetime. And what it felt like was like, how a lot of people at the end of the year, they'll make New Year's resolutions. That's
Yeah.
kind of what this felt like. And what happens, the reason that we plan these scrolls out is at the end of the life, when we finish a lifetime, we come back to this building, we get our scroll, and we look at it to see how we did. Did we accomplish everything that we came here to accomplish and to learn from? Well, right about then, I looked over to my right, and there was this gigantic wall, blocks, it could have been miles long, and it was full of all these scrolls. And my guide said everybody that was having a lifetime back in 1987, when my experience happened, all of them have these corresponding scrolls. So when a person finishes their lifetime, they come back to the other side, they go to this building, they get their scroll, and they look and see how they did. Well, when I tried to read my scroll, it folded up like this, and I wasn't able to see it. And I think the reason was because if I had known some of the things that I had planned for myself, I may have changed something and I wouldn't have experienced that. So I wasn't able to see that.
Yeah.
Well, before we left, my guide took me to another area of this building, and it was a huge, gigantic library with wooden bookshelves, maybe 20 or 30 feet high, but all the books were the same. They all looked exactly the same. They looked like Encyclopedia Britannicas, those big, thick books we would have. And they were all the same color, they were kind of maroon, kind of a purplish maroon color. And my guide walked me up to this one book, and every one of these books had gold lettering on the binding, but the lettering didn't go horizontal, it went vertical. And the one that he showed me said Nina, Nina. And he said, Nina is your soulmate. He said, everybody was created with a soulmate. Well, I had never even heard that term before. Back in 1987, I'd never heard that before. But he told me that when God created us, he created all of us with a perfect mate. And that perfect mate is with us for eternity on the other side. And these books that were in this library, what they contain is they're all about every one of the souls that God created. All of their gifts, because we were all created with gifts when God created us. Everything about that soul, all the lifetimes that they've had, everything that they've learned, everything they experienced are all in these books. And we all have one. And that was the building that I call the building with the big dome on it. So the next place he took me to was my absolute favorite part of my NDE. And he takes me to a building on the outside again. We go to the outside, and this one was different. It was this huge, long building that looked like a sports stadium, but it looked like it was made of metal or stainless steel. This beautiful metal-looking building, like a stadium to watch a football game or soccer or something like that. So he takes me to the inside, and the inside are thousands of seats, and all the lights are on, and it was super bright in this building. And my guide said, this is a planetarium. And maybe some of you remember, do you remember being a kid, John, when you would take field trips? Did you ever go to a planetarium as a kid?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I did too. So
Yeah.
I knew what this building was. Well, there was a gentleman behind me, and he knew everything about astronomy. He knew about galaxies and planets and stars, and he actually ran the planetarium. And my guide said, everybody on the other side loves to pursue the things that they are good at. Part of what they were created, some of the gifts that God gave them. And the man behind me knew everything about astronomy. And he started talking to me and he said, let's begin. And all the lights went off and it was pitch black. So I sat down and he said to me, when you look at the stars, this is what you see. And what he was talking about was everybody on Earth at that time, at their level of development, this is what they see when they look at the stars. And all of a sudden, our sun showed up, then Mercury and Venus, then Earth and Mars and Saturn and Jupiter, Uranus and Neptune, all the planets in our solar system. And then it disappeared. And then he said, when we look at the stars, this is what we see. And he was talking about all the people on the other side at their level of development. This is what they see when they look at the stars. And all of a sudden, planet after planet after planet started showing up. First, there were dozens, then hundreds, then thousands, and millions of other planets. And he said to me, there's far more life in the universe than you can possibly imagine. And I think my guide took me here to tell me two things. The first part was to tell me that Earth is not the only inhabited planet, that there are virtually unlimited other worlds that have life on them. Earth is only one. And then I think the other reason was to tell me that Earth is not the only planet that we can have lifetimes on, that there are virtually unlimited other worlds. And I remember when I was a kid, do you remember, John, the old Star Trek with Captain Kirk?
Yeah.
I used to
Love that.
watch that. I used every day after school, and when I got home, I would watch reruns of Star Trek. And even as a kid, I always believed there had to be other planets. And now that we have the James Webb Space Telescope, and we used to have the Hubble also.
Yeah.
Now we know that they estimate that in the Milky Way galaxy alone, that there are 100 billion planets. And they estimate that the universe is comprised of 2 trillion galaxies. If every galaxy has 100 billion planets, can you imagine how many worlds there must be? It's absolutely,
Countless.
yeah, exactly. It's countless. It's staggering. And that was my favorite part of my near-death experience. So we leave the planetarium, and he takes me to another building. This one was the biggest one so far. It was so long, I could not see the end of it. It was made of white marble, but it didn't have columns on the sides. It only had columns in the front. And it had all these stairs that you had to walk up to get to the entrance. So we go to the inside, and immediately I know that it's a library. And I can see all these people, and people are looking at different books. They're visiting each other. They're studying. Very, very busy place. Wherever it was that he took me, it was a really busy area. People were everywhere. And what I learned from that is when we finish our lifetime and we pass over, we just continue with where we left off. We're really busy over there. And my guide explained to me that everything that you enjoy doing here on Earth, you can also do on the other side. You can go hiking, you can go fishing, you can go camping, you can go to music festivals, you can take classes, you can go to lectures, you can write. All the things that people love to do, they can do over there because that's home. Earth is not our home. We're only here temporarily. So I'm in this library now, and he takes me over to the left-hand side. And the left-hand side are these study rooms, just like the kind of rooms that we would see in libraries today. where you could reserve the room, go study for a couple of hours. It was about the size of a person's average living room. And he takes me to this one room, and there was a woman who was sitting there, and her back was to me. She had jet black hair down to her waist, and she was wearing some kind of a purple kind of a gown or a tunic. And she was watching something on the wall. And this was something that really blew my mind because back in 1987, the only TV sets that we had were those big, bulky television sets that were super heavy. You couldn't put one on a wall, they were too big.
Yeah.
Well, this woman was watching what we would call today as a plasma flat screen television, about 50 or 60 inches, this huge screen. Well, we didn't have those back in 1987. So I was
No.
amazed. I was amazed to see what she was watching. And my guide said, get closer and look at what she's watching. So I get closer and I can see that she's watching a battle between Native American Indians on horseback and the United States cavalry on horseback. And they're fighting in this big plains, this field. And I just assumed that she was watching a movie. She's watching a movie that was made about this battle. But my guide said she's watching actual history of a battle that took place 250 years ago in the United States. And my first thought was, that's impossible. We didn't have videos back then. There's
Yeah.
no way. How could this be recorded? And my guide said, everything gets recorded. And to this day, I still don't understand how that's possible. But it's a God thing because our entire lifetime, everybody's lifetime, every event in history is recorded by God. So when you finish your lifetime, you can come back and review your life. Not only your life, but you can actually review anybody's life. Like if you wanted to learn about what it was like in Jesus's time, you could see his life. You could watch Mother Teresa. You could watch Gandhi or
Yeah.
Martin Luther King. You could see this in history. And I just thought that was extraordinary because on the other side, we can still learn. It's just that we come into lifetimes on a place like Earth because we can experience, it's the experience of learning that we can't learn on the other side. And my guide explained to me that on the other side, the place that God created for us for eternity, there is no negativity. There's no war, there's no hunger, there's no poverty, there's no homelessness. None of the things that we deal with here on earth exist on the other side. It's a perfect place, a perfect world of love and joy, tenderness, compassion. And plus, there's still learning because when God created us, he created all of us with a desire to like to continue to learn, to grow, and to develop. So God set about all these planets that we can have lifetimes on, that we can continue to learn for eternity. So I thought that was just mind blowing that we can still learn on the other side and all the history is there. So we leave that building and he takes me to a castle just like you would see in England or France. This enormous castle built of stone, looked absolutely perfect, beautiful castle. He said, and my guide said, let's go inside. So we go inside, and the first thing I notice is all of this red carpeting all along the floor. And it was made for you to feel like you were royalty when you walked into this castle. Well, on both sides were these huge walls going down like blocks. This castle was huge. On each wall, there were life-size paintings. And my guide said, these are paintings of people who had lived in medieval Europe during that time period. You could see what they looked like. You could also see what kind of clothes they were wearing. Well, in front of every one of these paintings, like they were queens or kings, King George, Queen Anne, all these people that lived in that time period, in front of every one of their paintings, there was a podium. And on the podium was a book. And my guide said that book is about everything about that person's lifetime. What they were like as children, where they went to school, how they were educated, everything about them is in that booklet. So if you were on the other side and you wanted to learn about medieval Europe, you could come to this castle. You could see what people lived in. You could see what they looked like from the paintings. And then you could read about them in these books. Well, right about then, something catches my eye on the right-hand side. So I look over, and there was this woman who was walking down this stairwell. You know, remember how castles back then, they didn't have those stairs that went up. They kind of went in a circle like this, kind of round.
Yeah.
She was walking down this stairwell, and she was walking up to me. And my first thought was, uh-oh, I must be in trouble. Maybe I'm not supposed to be here. So she walks up to me and she said, "Is there anything I can help you find?" And John, I said the stupidest thing. I said, "No, thanks. I'm just looking." It's like what you do when you walk into a clothing store. I could have asked her anything. Who are you? Where am I? I thought I was supposed to be having surgery. Well, my guide told me that what this woman does on the other side is she loves history, and she knows all about medieval Europe's history. So if you wanted to learn about that time period, you could come to the castle, look at the paintings, read the books, but you could also ask her any questions. She was like what we would call was a professor of that type of Earth's history.
Hmm. Man.
So here is the very last part of my story. So once we leave the castle, my guide takes me to a meadow, and it was the most beautiful meadow I have ever seen. Rolling hills, green grass, wildflowers. It was a perfect day. The sun was out, no clouds. And then my guide, he left. And I thought I was standing in this field by myself. So I turn around to look at the rest of this field, and right in front of me is standing a man about 3 feet away. And he had a white golden robe on with a gold sash around his waist. And he had gold colored sandals that laced up his calves. And I knew immediately, he didn't tell me his name, but I knew this is who we call Jesus, the being that we know as Jesus.
Mm.
When I looked at his face, he was different than everybody else I saw. On the other side, everybody looks like we do. Everyone has their own look to them. Some people are taller, some people are shorter, some people have brown hair, some people have brunette. Everybody has their own look. Well, when I looked at him, when I looked at his face, all of this light was coming out of his face. It looked like lightning was just shooting out, and I couldn't see any of his features. Well, he spoke to me, and he said, "You must tell them there is no death." In the very second he said that, it was boom. I woke right back up inside that operating room. And ever since then, I have been telling my story to anybody who would listen, because it wasn't it was kind of the way he said it. He didn't say, "You know what, John, when it's convenient for you, when you're not busy, when you don't have anything going on, would you mind sharing what we showed you?" He didn't say it like that. He said, "You must tell them there is no death." And so ever since then,
Mm.
my main message has been to tell people that the happiest day of your lifetime will be your last day because that's the day you're going home. Everybody has to pass to get back to the other side again because we're not here forever. God never intended us to be on a planet like this forever because it's not home. Our home is the other side.
Yeah.
So I know I talked a lot. Do you have any questions for me?
All I can say is, wow, what an experience.
I know it's really interesting, and I
It's,
think of I think of my experience like a piece of a jigsaw puzzle, and all of us who have had these NDEs, these near-death experiences, we all have little pieces of this
yeah,
jigsaw puzzle, and we're all trying to figure it out.
yeah. It's like, it sounded almost like a campus,
Yeah, exactly.
university campus.
Yeah. And every campus has their science building,
Yeah,
your history building, your English building. That's exactly what it felt like. Because wherever this place was, there were people everywhere. It was really a busy place. So when people pass, they don't do nothing. They're very busy over there.
yeah. It's, it's like the college of life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, wow. It's just, when I heard it the first time, like I told you on someone else's podcast, and listening to it again, it's just, it still amazes me.
I know it's sometimes I forget what it's like when people hear it for the first
Wow.
time. Because
Yeah,
I have lived with it for all these years, and to me it's second nature for me. It's no
yeah,
longer it's for me it's no longer a belief that we live after death. It's a knowing. It's an absolute knowing that nobody dies. Nobody ever really dies. We just go back home again.
yeah. It reminds me of saying that I hear it every so often. Um, Actually, my wife heard it repeatedly the last 2 years taking that course that she took.
Oh yeah.
Um, we are heavenly spirits living in a human body.
Yes, exactly.
And listening to you, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Um, I don't even know where to begin.
I know it's a crazy story. I know. And I don't even know why. I still don't know why they gave it to me because I don't have a podcast. I don't have a radio show.
Yeah.
I don't have anything really. So they must have known that. They must have known I wasn't gonna be a radio figure or anything like that. So I don't know why they showed me that instead of showing it to someone like Oprah.
Yeah.
So I hope if anybody has if your listeners have any questions for me, they're more than welcome to send me an email. Did I give you my email address yet?
No.
Okay, I'll give it to you. It's John J. Davis 65 at iCloud.com. So if anybody has any questions for me, they want to follow up with anything, they're more than welcome to email me, and I get back to everybody.
Now you have a website too.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
I
that. Yeah,
visited it.
yeah. The website is johnjdavisnde.com. A friend of mine, actually, just about 6 months ago, she built it for me. And what she did is she took some pictures from AI, artificial intelligence, and created a lot of the things that I saw on the other side. And they're on my website. So if anybody wants to go to the website, they can take a look and see some of the things that I saw over there. And it even makes the experience even more come alive for them.
Yeah, I did check out those pictures. And if anyone else is interested, he's got quite a few podcasts on his website also. I don't
Yeah.
even know. I didn't even begin to count.
I always enjoy sharing my story because when I tell it again, it makes me feel like I'm right back there all over again. And I
Yeah.
always love to share my story because it's such a story of hope for all of us that nobody really passes. There's never an end. We just make a transition back home again.
Yeah. Well, we are just about out of time.
Okay,
There's another show coming up behind us.
I know.
I want to thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. I will keep in contact with you.
Please do, John. Please do. I so enjoyed meeting you and sharing my story. And thank you again for having me on.
All right. And folks, if you want to watch this video again, because it's a lot to take in, go to YouTube, type in Mill City Marketing MA. Most of my podcasts are listed there. When you go there, like and subscribe. And John, you're welcome to check out the rest of my podcasts that are on there as well.
Fantastic.
Mill
Thank
City
you.
Marketing MA. That's the name of my business.
Fantastic.
Again, thank
you.
you, John. It's been a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you, John.
And that will do it for me, folks. Until next week, I have a guest next week that doesn't go quite as far as John has, but he does numerology. He works with angels and numerology. He was also a former employee of the Alignable platform, which is a business-to-business platform, which I'm an ambassador for. So it's going to be a very interesting conversation again next Wednesday, folks. So tune in. As we say here in the network that this is on, I'm here every Friday, live at 5 Eastern time.